Okay, fellow pilots, you already know that every landing can become an oops somewhere between the start of the flare and the touchdown point. So let's talk about the common errors in the flare and what you can do to correct them. Some of the more common ones are flaring too high, ballooning, especially if you have a clown like me at the controls, flaring too late, and bouncing. If you misjudge your flare height and level off higher than normal, your airplane will eventually stall, then drop for a hard landing. Such landings cause the airplane to go plop and your passengers to go oof. But in spite of this miscue, you can save the day and your landing, thereby avoiding the plops and oofs. Now, the reason you started your flare too high was probably because you were looking at the runway too near the airplane. And what that does, it leaves you with a blurred reference and faulty depth perception. The cure for the high flare is to hold the climb attitude while adding a skosh of power to control your descent. This works really well if you catch it before the bottom drops out. But don't try to stop a rapid descent with just elevator back pressure. You're already slow, and you'll speed the resulting stall and descent if you try it with back pressure alone. And don't push forward on the control wheel because you might touch down on the nose wheel with enough force to damage it or set up a porpoise. Your airplane isn't stressed to land on its nose the way a porpoise does. Now, the cure for a high flare after the bottom starts to drop out is to hold the climb attitude and add full power and go around. You should initiate a go around anytime you think the nose should be lowered significantly to keep from stalling too high above the runway. Now, a similar problem is ballooning, and we ain't talking about a kid's birthday party here where you twist them up into a poodle. Ballooning in the flare happens if you misjudge the rate of pitch up for your rate of descent. Basically, you balloon when you pull back on the control wheel too fast, and the result is you climb. This especially is likely to happen if your approach speed is too fast. The cure for ballooning is the same as for a high flare. Hold the climb attitude and add a little power to catch it before the bottom drops out. And of course, go around anytime you're uncomfortable. Now, the high flare's opposite number is flaring too late. This can happen if you're looking too far in front of your airplane during the transition from the descent to the flare. With that view, you don't sense how close you are to the surface until you're there, and then oof! The probable outcome is landing flat and then bouncing back into the air. Now, you've probably watched a plane bounce on a landing. It's actually fairly common. And if you should happen to bounce sometime, I'm sure your passengers will feel truly honored that you chose to give them the full landing experience. But you can recover from the bounce the same way you recover from the high flare and the balloon. Hold the climb attitude and use power to control your descent. And maybe you'll be so smooth that your passengers won't even realize it when you make that second touchdown. Now, landings are really fun because each and every one is a new challenge, and a well-executed landing is satisfying indeed. And every pilot strives for that perfect landing flare, where the wheels float just millimeters above the ground, then gently kiss the runway, just as the wings wistfully whisper au revoir to the lift. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, all pilots are really romantics. All right, boys, that's a wrap. Let's get out of here.